Greetings to all. The art of photography doesn't lie in use of best technology. It lies in skill to see the uniqueness around you. August 19 of every year is celebrated as World Photography Day. Professionals, hobbyists and enthusiasts all gather around on this day to celebrate their love for photography.
As we all know, the technology behind photography has developed leaps and bounds since the 18th century. Cameras evolved from obscura to photographic technologies, to films, to digital cameras, and now to smartphones. Thanks to technology and evolution of photography just brought this art into the hands of millions of people today. Yes, with our smartphones. You and I are also photographers, though not professionals. But the photographs that we take surely differ from the ones taken by professionals, isn't it, Naren?
Oh, really? I thought I was a pro in clicking pictures. Pranav, you are quite a good photographer. Can you give us some tips on how to click pictures like a pro?
Oh, sure, Naren. However, I think it would be better if you were to learn more about it from a professional photographer.
Sure, Pranav, let's hear it from the professional.
Here today, we have with us Mr. Harishwara Venkat sir, who is a photographer, filmmaker and a naturalist. He hails from Coimbatore and has been documenting animal behavior ever since he was 15 years and has moderated various events on wildlife conservation and man-animal conflicts. Harish sir travelled across India and parts of Southeast Asia in pursuit of photographing animals in their natural habitat. He believes that the future of the environment and wildlife conservation lies in educating the younger generation and thus getting them closer to nature. Hello sir.
Hello.
Happy World Photography Day.
Thank you. Happy World Photography Day to you guys too.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for a warm welcome and thank you for having me.
Welcome to the show,
Thank
sir.
you.
We amateur photographers have a few questions for you.
Sure.
Shall we begin, sir?
Yes.
So, sir, what was your inspiration to become a photographer?
Okay. So I was introduced to the world of natural history and wildlife from a very young age by my parents. And so ever since we were 4 or 5 years old, we've been going to the forest multiple times. All our holidays were to the forests. Directly from school, my parents used to take us, say Friday evenings from school, directly we used to go. So my dad also got me a lot of wildlife books which had real life stories written on conservation and other related subjects on wildlife. So we used to read those books, and then my dad used to take us into the forest and show us practically, what it meant on the book that you see here in real life. So that way that interest got a little more. So we started reading more books and comparing it to how it is in real life in the forest. So me and my brother used to walk around. Now it's not possible, but back in the day we used to walk around inside Mudumalai forest and gained a lot of experience. So this went on for a long time, and to be honest, I got really bored of just seeing animals, and I really wanted to document something. Document means just take a picture, to bring back memories. So so I used to take my dad's camera and start photographing them, although not very professionally. I was an amateur, but rather a learner back in the day. Even today I'm a learner. So that is how it started, the journey into photography.
That was great to know, sir. Thank you.
Sir, may I go ahead with your second question?
Yes, please.
Sir, we saw some pictures in the wildlife photograph that we have collected. They were amazing.
Thank you.
How did you get drawn towards photography?
So a primary reason is to say, for example, if you see something very rare in the forest, instead of yes, storytelling is a great thing, but to show something, to connect with the story was a better deal to talk to people about. So that is predominantly why I got into photography. And as days went by, we witness amazing things, very rare incidents. We see rare creatures, which also can become a database for me to refer to in the future as well. So say for example, a particular animal that is not seen in, say, around 1,000 feet above sea level, if it is seen in that area, that means something has changed in the environment. Okay, maybe the climate has changed, maybe the habitat has changed, so it is coming down or going up to around 1,000 meters above sea level to go make its own habitat. So, that is a document that can be useful for scientists or wildlife biologists and people that are working in the wildlife research field. So that is the primary reason I started getting serious about wildlife photography.
So I have to go next.
Yeah.
So what do you think would be the future of photography in terms of job opportunities or technological advancements?
Okay, so photography, since we're talking about wildlife photography here, there is no job opportunity available, sadly, because the supply is more than demand, right? So there are only a few magazines, there are a few online portals that dedicatedly work for wildlife and nature. So there is no job per se that you can get yourself prepared to and work towards to get a job. So in wildlife photography is more like you start as an amateur and then you get better at it every day, and then slowly get into it, and by documenting whatever you can, and if it is something interesting, then people get a chance to showcase it on very serious wildlife platforms. So that can lead into a job. So if you look at how many people there are photographing animals and how many people actually make it to those platforms is very, very minuscule. So like I said, even people, when I go to the forest, sometimes I get messages saying, next time I'll come as your assistant. So there is no job or scope for assistant itself, because you are putting yourself in a position where it is a very expensive hobby or profession to have. So even if you are going somewhere, you are going to carry your own equipment, be it however heavy it is, you are going to carry it yourself, and there is no necessity for even an assistant to, right? Because you are photographing something. What will an assistant do there?
Of course, sir. It wasn't for me too. So then how could photography rather help governments to curb offences and maintain law and order?
Okay, so there are, the photography has been helping government and forest department and policymakers in changing how people look at wildlife. So mainly we have all these trap cameras. When an animal or any subject that crosses its path, the camera is triggered by itself and it takes pictures. So why this is important is, there are some places, extreme places, where human beings cannot go to, or even if they go to, it is pretty extreme to wait for a couple of days for an animal to show up. Another thing is, even if you wait for a couple of days, it is very difficult to spot an animal, because animals are very, very sensitive. So once they know there is a presence of a human being or any other threat to it, they do not come out in the open, right? So at that time, what helps the best is a camera trap, where you can just, based on the signs of animals walking, it's called the animal beat. So based on where they're walking, which path they're using, you can place trap cameras there, which also helps people who are poaching for animals. Poachers, they are not aware that these cameras are there, right? So what happens is, they are also sometimes recorded in these trap cameras. So that kind of gives the forest department heads up as to what is happening in the jungle when they're not monitoring it, or the times that are not possible to monitor. So based on this, people take decisions to write new policies, make new decisions about poaching and other conservation efforts. So sometimes even these trap cameras help in identifying and understanding animal movements. For example, tigers have been seen in completely different areas, completely different places as to where they've seen before. Like say a year or year and a half ago, but they are in completely new different habitats. So again, this is with the help of trap cameras, where they compare the stripes of the tigers to understand, okay, this particular animal, maybe because of non-availability of territory, availability of food, or territorial fights with other animals, other tigers, they have migrated from one place to the other to make its home. Yeah.
Yes, sir, of course. Photography is very useful in wildlife conservation.
So, shall I go next?
Yes, please.
So, how do you think photographers contribute to society, sir?
Yeah. So photographers don't wake up in the morning and say, okay, I'm going to go contribute to the society today. But it's a constant effort, perseverance, and knowing what they shoot, like, right? So be it a conservation photographer, be it a journalist, there are war journalists, there are various different categories of photography. So they have to be in the field every single day to capture amazing moments, right? And also devastating moments, right? For example, when it comes to war photography, political photography, and even wildlife photography, some things have massively changed, aggressively changed because of one picture. So this, you cannot set out to go take an epic picture, but you have to be there in the field, be it any field, wildlife or anything else. You have to be persistent. You have to have the knowledge about the subject. You have to have the skill to anticipate what's going to happen next, and be there at the right place at the right time to take some stunning, game-changing photos that may be in the future can be used for some real change in the world. So that is, I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Thank you for those eye-opening words, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, I'd like to go with the next question.
Sure.
Sir, in my opinion, many take up photography as a hobby than a profession.
Right.
Is that the real scenario? And like in the movie Three Idiots, there is some sort of resistance towards this thing. What are your thoughts on this?
Right. So now there is a lot more awareness. But say when I started off, I bought my digital SLR in 2005, I think. So before that, I was using my father's cameras. So when I was growing up itself, photography was not seen as a job opportunity or a business opportunity. So obviously, when parents are told or informed that their children want to take up photography as a profession back in the day, it was not a lucrative business. Like even today, it is not that lucrative. You have to cross all boundaries and be extremely creative to make it as a profession today. So, but it is definitely better from the last 20 years. Today, it's definitely better with so many, like for example, we was talking about mobile phone photography. Today, mobile phones are as good as any other, medium of taking pictures, because it's always on you, right? So when you have the photo with you all the time, camera with you all the time, you're able to capture something that otherwise, when you have to go take the camera from the house and come and shoot, it is not possible. So today there is definitely more awareness towards what photography can do as a business, journalism and other topics. But today, why most of them are amateurs than professionals is because it could be because of one of the questions I answered earlier, is there's no more supply than demand, right? So what can anyone do? Like if a household has one professional photographer, what will they shoot? Like whom will they work for? Is always the question. But I'm not discouraging people from trying to shoot, because only if you try to shoot and if you become a good photographer will you get the opportunity that is little available at least. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. That was informative.
Thank you.
Can I ask another question?
Yes,
sir?
please.
So most people think photography is all about just a click under proper lighting, but we know that's far from the truth.
Right.
What would you like to tell people with such lopsided notion?
Okay. I don't know if it's a lopsided notion, but photography is just not a click under great lighting. There have been images that are not very well lit, but beautifully composed, right? To that have made it very big. So, especially in wildlife photography, lighting is very subjective, right? So, if you are shooting something, some person, or say even an animal in a studio, you have control over light, you have control over everything, right? So, it has to, I mean, it is more than just a click with the good lighting. It is years of skill that you develop, it's years of anticipating the animal behavior, and it's years of understanding light. So it is all that put together at the right moment. So yes, lighting is definitely important. Without light there is no photography. In fact, the word photography, photo, also stands for light, right? So it depends how well you start learning to play with light. That is what creates the magic.
That was very informative, sir.
Thanks.
Sir, your next question is that a famous photographer has once said your first 10,000 photographs are yours. Does it take that long to be proficient in this field?
Okay. First 10,000 pictures.
Yes, sir.
I think it's Henry.
Yeah.
Somebody called Henry mentioned that, I think, right?
Yes.
So today it's not true. Definitely not true. Maybe back in the day when film cameras, I don't think you guys are exposed to film cameras at all. But when there were film cameras, there's something called a film roll that you put inside a camera, you strap it in, and then you crank it and you take one picture. So say if you, for example, if you're going on a trip, for a week-long trip, and so these film rolls have only 32, or sometimes even less, or sometimes even little more per roll. So say if you are anticipating to take about 100 pictures, you need to take 3 film rolls with you. And say, for example, if something amazing happens on the 3rd day of your 6-day trip, and you decide to finish those 3 rolls because there's something amazing happening, some amazing sighting of wildlife or something. So the rest of the 4 days you're left with no film, right? And even if you want to take a picture, I mean, if you want to look at the picture that you have taken, you have to wait until you come back and then approach the studio, and then go give the studio to the studio owner, and then he has to treat the negative film in the dark room, and then it's delivered after a couple of days, and then you get to see the picture, right? So today, that's not the case, right? So the scope of improving, the scope of understanding what you've done, and the scope of improving upon your skills is far more easier and more accessible and more practical today. So it may have been that case, say in the film camera era, but today with so many online courses, so many physical courses that one can avail to learn photography, and today especially the cameras are getting more into computational photography, right? So earlier it used to be 100% optical, but now there are the camera sensors that are so advanced. They are able to track a bird's eye. They're able to track a fast moving car, and they're able to track a cheetah running at 100 kilometers an hour. So they are so intelligent, these sensors. They also know what to do while the engine is processing the image to put out a better image than what you've clicked. So that is called computational photography. So computational photography is seen mostly in cell phones, right? So you have something called the HDR mode, right? So HDR stands for high dynamic range imaging. So basically you get the most details out of the darkest of the dark blacks, or the brightest of the bright whites, bright color, bright sky or something. So the more data you collect, it has got a high dynamic range. So the best thing to capture high dynamic range in the whole world is our eyes. So none of the cameras have even come close to reproducing what our eyes see. But today, So you can take one picture, 0 exposure, 1 minus 1, and 1 plus 1. You put all these together and create dynamic range, high dynamic range image. But on cell phones today, it happens with one picture. So it immediately saves one photo minus 1 and one photo plus 1 and merges all of it together and puts it out in fraction of a second. So that is computational photography. So skin smoothing and all that. So with all this happening, and the technology of cameras and imaging getting better by the day, it is I believe it is definitely not that statement doesn't hold true today. Yeah.
It's great to know, sir. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sir, may I go ahead with the last question?
Please.
Okay, sir. Photography is the art of making memories tangible. Would you like to share any of your tangible memories as a photographer, sir?
Yes. Actually, there are many memories like that. But if I have to remember one image that I had taken, so this is not wildlife photography actually. So I shot this person who works in the wildlife department, right? So I consider people living in the forest and working in the forest, the tribals and all those people are part of the environment, right? So somebody who can live just off the land that they're living in, and make a living out of that is a part of wildlife. It's just we can't call them wildlife because it's not the case. But this one memory that I wanted to make so badly was in Parambiculam when we were going to one of the islands to stay. So it is a 1.5 hour journey on a boat, right? So I got on the boat and there were two people, the men that row the boat. So usually I try to talk to them to understand, what kind of wildlife we see and what the habitat is like and stuff like that. So, but that particular person was very calm and quiet. He didn't really talk much. So I also was like, okay, let's get to the island as quickly as possible and then let's see what we can photograph. And then suddenly me and my friends were discussing about something related to Tiger Reserve franchisees, like Mudumalai Tiger Reserve. Some are national parks, some are wildlife sanctuaries. So this Tiger Reserve franchisee is given only to best performing and high tiger count jungles, right? So suddenly this person got into the conversation and he started talking about tiger reserves. He started talking about wildlife conservation. He started talking about Forest Dwellers Act, and he started all the government policies, and he's talking about public-private partnership between people and the government to come together to talk about conservation and how you should include people living in the forest as stakeholders while you are writing a policy sitting in Delhi about conserving something in South India per se, So this got me really amazed because this person has only one job, rowing the boat from one place to the other, taking guests and dropping them off. So, and he is a tribal person. So the fact that he knew so much with so much understanding, and he's able to articulate all this, living in some remote corner in the forest, amazed me. So I thought I should take a picture of him because I thought he was a part of nature as well, as much as all of us are, but more so, So I think that is one memory tangible memory, because I made a big photograph, blew up that picture, and I have it in my house. So that is one great memory that I have.
Thank you, sir. Your
Thank you.
inspirational words are going to help create lots of photographers in this world.
Thank you so much.
To conclude, photographs represent memories, and these memories are relished forever. We now come to an end of today's discussion on the significance of the World Photography Day and journey of passion photographer Mr. Harishwara Venkat. Day is not only celebrated by professionals but also by everyone with their smartphones, because we all love to take photographs of precious moments.